think we'll just do it by consent. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll bring the Tuesday, May 12th, 2026 regular council meeting to order. We'll start with our land acknowledgement that the City of Fort Saskatchewan is located on Treaty 6 territory and Métis Nation of Alberta District 11. We recognize that we stand upon land that carries the footsteps of many Indigenous peoples, including the Nihilwak, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, and Métis. The City honors the First Peoples of this land and is committed to fostering reconciliation through relationship building, knowledge gathering, and education. We do have some guests in the gallery today, so I'll just point out that if you need to use the facilities, they are located in the main lobby of City Hall. If there is an emergency and we need to evacuate, we're going to use these main doors and go straight out to the parking lot to the muster point. If this happens to be blocked, there is a door in behind here. Just follow one of our staff and we'll get you to where you need to be. All right, I'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda. I would note that we are going to move the 10.1 city naming registry to the top, just so our guests don't have to wait through public hearings. I'll go Councillor Ketcher.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to adopt the agenda and moving 10.1 to the first item.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions, comments? Not seeing any, I'll close the motion. That is carried. We'll move on to delegations. So delegations is the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak about anything on the agenda that does not include a public hearing. So would you like the opportunity to speak before we move on with the agenda? Would you like to speak about the naming registry at all? There's no pressure to do so. I just wanted to make sure you knew that you had the opportunity to. No? You're good. All right. Thank you. Not seeing anybody else come up. We'll move on to consent agenda. So items on the consent agenda today are 5.1, approval of minutes, April 23rd, special council meeting, 5.2, and 5.3, also minutes from regular council meeting and special council meeting, 10.3, rescinding policy for annual performance review city manager, and 10.4, proposed cancellation and replacement of the June 16th, 2026 committee of the whole. Councillor Nguyen?
Yeah, I'll move council adopt the consent agenda consisting of 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 10.3, and 10.4.
Thank you very much. Not seeing any debate on that, I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. And that is carried. All right, so moving on to our new first item, 10.1 under new business, city naming registry submission. I'll invite Irina Kennedy to present.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. My name is Irina Kennedy, and I'm a Senior Legislative Officer with the City. I'm here today to present a request to add Sergeant John Rockwell's name to the City Naming Registry. As outlined in the report before you, Council's City Naming Policy and Procedure, GOV 002C, establishes a process by which the names of individuals can be applied to neighborhoods within the city, municipal parks, or city assets and facilities. The addition of a name to the city naming registry is done with consideration to the policy's guiding principles, including recognizing individuals who have contributed to the development of the community and reflect Fort Saskatchewan's history. Specifically, administration considered guiding principle sections 4.1.2b, which relates to reflecting the city's history and recognizing individuals who contributed to the development of the community. Section 4.1.2d, relating to recognizing a legacy of a leadership in public service, and Section 4.1.2e, relating to commemorating acts of bravery or sacrifice. Given these criteria, I would like to speak about the application before you. On February 10th, 2026, administration received an application to add John Rockwell's name to the city naming registry. This request does not seek immediate application to a specific asset, but seeks inclusion in the registry for potential future use. The submission is also supported by the Rockwell family. Administration considered Sergeant Rockwell's early arrival in Fort Saskatchewan in 1891, his service with the Northwest Mounted Police during the formative years of the community, and his long-standing family connection to the region. His service extended over multiple years, with a connection to the community spanning from approximately 1891 to 1913, although not continuously due to postings in other locations. In addition to his service, the submission includes information from his family indicating that Sergeant Rockwell established his life in the area. He married locally in 1897 and raised his family in the region. The application also notes that there has been a continuous presence of his descendants in Fort Saskatchewan for that time to the present day, reflecting a long-standing and multi-generational connection to the community. Administration also considered Section 3.3.4 of the procedure relating to recognition of a legacy and leadership and public service, including documented records of public service. Further, administration considered Section 3.3.5a of the procedure relating to acts of bravery or sacrifice, which includes consideration of verified record of extraordinary courage, particularly in protecting public safety or community welfare. The supporting materials provided with the application include historical newspaper articles documenting Sergeant Rockwell's service activities, including a widely reported prisoner tracking and recapture incident in 1906 that was described at the time as a remarkable feat of tracking by a member of the Mounted Police. Administration considered these materials as part of the overall context of the application review. Also, administration is satisfied that the application meets the requirements of the city naming policy and procedure. Should council choose to approve the addition of Sergeant John Edward Rockwell's name to the city naming registries, the corresponding motion can be found in the report before you. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Councillor Randawa.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the presentation. I'd just like to move the motion. So I move that council approve the addition of the name Sergeant John E. Rockwell to the city naming registry.
I'll accept the motion. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, for sure. I think this naming registry that we have is reasons just like this that we have it for. It's recognizing and appreciating our heritage, individuals that have given so much to our community, and just reading Sergeant John Rockwell's life story was quite fascinating, and the impact that he had on our city. And I think this is just a great way to not only recognize his contributions, but to the entire Rockwell family that has continued to do so much in our city for generations. So I think it's a great way to recognize it and just continue to appreciate the heritage, the rich heritage that our community has.
Thank you. Councillor Noyan.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge Terry and Jackie for being here today, and thank you both for compiling this historical narrative that consists of the life of John E. Rockwell, to which you are descendants. I think it's very fascinating, the story that brought this individual to the area that we now call Fort Saskatchewan, and elements of patriarch of Turner Park and historical anecdotes of his service in the RCMP are just some of the elements that are included in the story. So I appreciate the submission. It's clear that he has a lasting impact on our community in Fort Saskatchewan and shaped the underpinnings of the foundation of our town. So it's very, very neat to see where your family originated in this area and where you've gone and become from there. So I just want to endorse the addition of his name to the naming registry.
Thank you very much. I'll just make the comment that I think that this is a very admirable name to add to our naming registry. Thank you so much to the family for being diligent and consistent in trying to get the city to recognize this. Reading through the information, I just think that, just like what has been said, really appreciate the name being brought forward. I know that it's really easy to recognize elected officials or people who are just more visible in the community, and just sometimes we don't hear all the names and see them, and I really appreciate this getting brought forward for consideration. So I will support this motion. Not seeing anybody else. Councillor Randau, would you like to close? No. Okay, I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. Thank you, and that is carried unanimously. And before we move on with the agenda, would the Rockwell family like a picture with council before you leave today?
Yeah, I just want to thank you very much for the kind words. I guess we gave most of you this little write-up, you know, it's not our words, it's from the paper in Edmonton about things that Grandpa did. You know, the tracking and all the different things. I think most of you've got this, and we just feel that it's something that we've been really passionate about. And I want to thank you very much for that presentation. I want to thank the council very much for your consideration.
Yeah.
You know,
No pressure. Would you like a picture before you go? Would you like a picture with council before you go?
yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all.
All right, we'll just take a very short break to take that picture and then we will continue on. Thank you. Just waiting to see if we're good. The live stream on? Good? Yes? I'm not seeing a thumbs up, so I think we're good. All right. We'll move on to item number 6, public hearing, 6.1, bylaw C1526, road closure, portion of road plan 0421351 right away. Taryn Samra presenting. The process for the public hearing will be that administration will provide their opening comments and information, with council being able to ask it questions of administration. Following that, the public will be invited to speak on the item, with those registered in advance to present first. Council can proceed in asking questions, and then administration can come back up and answer any follow-up questions before we close the public hearing. With that, go ahead, Mr. Samra, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. My name is Terrence Samra, planner here. I'm a planner from Planning and Development Department. I'm here to present a brief summary of bylaw C15-26. Closes a portion of road plan 042-1351. To begin, the road right-of-way to be closed is located west of Highway 21, south of West Park, and north of Point of Pins. The purpose of a road closure is to remove the road designation and permanently close a publicly used or undeveloped road right-of-way that is no longer required for travel or use. Upon closures, lands are converted into a legally titled parcel with a lot block and plan description, and road closures are typically undertaken to facilitate further development of the land or to allow consolidation with adjacent parcels to improve developability. In January 2026, Arcadis Geomatics Canada, on behalf of the property owner of Northeast Section 13, Township Road 54, Range Road 23, approached administration to close a portion of undeveloped road plan 0421351, which is just north of their quarter section as shown in blue. The property owner expressed interest in purchasing the proposed road closure area and consolidating with their adjacent quarter section. By doing so, this would increase the developability of the lands within Pointed Pins. The subject area is approximately 2.6 hectares, is currently a natural area with trees and grass. The proposed road closure area does not contain the constructed Wilshire Boulevard or Township Road 543. These roads will remain open to the public to access Dalball Diamonds, adjacent neighborhoods of Windsor Point, Pointed Pins, and Forest Ridge. If closed, the road closure area will be designated as AGS, Agricultural General South District. And please note that the road closure area is intended to be sold. However, land sales are considered a separate council item and will be brought forward by administration at a future council meeting. While this application does not further any policies within the municipal development plan or Pointed Pins area structure plan, administration does support the proposed road closure as a technical exercise to facilitate development within Pointed Pins. Please note that this road closure application is not requesting to change any land use designated within the Pointed Pins area structure plan. Any future proposed changes will be considered a separate application and will be brought forward at a separate council meeting. Following first reading, the public hearing was advertised in the Fort Record for 2 consecutive weeks. 79 notices were delivered to the property owners within 100 meters of the proposed road closure area, and notice of the proposed bylaw was posted on the city's website and social media accounts, and 2 responses were received. The recommended motion is that council give second and third reading to bylaw C15-26 as described in the council report. And that concludes my presentation, and administration is here to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you very much. Just gonna see if anyone's ready. There we go. Councillor Harris.
Mr. Salmon, so obviously with the closure of the road, it's going to be then designated as an agricultural area, which the rest of that area that's going to be future development is currently allocated in terms of planning designation, correct?
Through the mayor to Councillor Harris, that is correct.
Okay. I have traditionally or typically been against the retention of that tree stand. Where is the developer in relation to that tree stand? A portion of it is obviously within the context of what is the current road right away, and ultimately will become developable in some context. So what is the status of that? Because those trees have no value. They grow from a common root. If you didn't do any cultivation in that quarter section, that's what the whole quarter section would be. So I don't see any value. So what is the current status in relation to what the developer is contemplating?
Through the mayor to Councillor Harris, so the current status is that the tree stand would remain as per, because it was, when the Pointed Pins area structure plan was approved, the tree stand was meant to be there, and this was in correlation with technical reports that were done at the time of the Pointed Pins area structure plan being approved, which would be the biophysical impact assessment, which recommended that the tree stand remain for certain reasons such as habitat for travel, things like that, right? So as of right now, the status would be to keep the tree stand. If the discussion comes up when an application to amend the area structure plan or to go to the next stage of statutory planning, which would be to bring up to apply for a neighborhood structure plan, then yes, that conversation, I would recommend having that conversation as council should do, to have your thoughts, and if council is willing to go in a different direction, then that could be something that council may bring forward. But as of right now, the status is to keep the tree stand. I understand there's specific values when it comes to a tree stand. There's an economic side to it, which you've mentioned, but there's also a social side which you can't really put a dollar amount on. However, if that's, in the end, it will be up to council to decide if that's the way they want to go or not, right?
Well, I'm just trying to understand. So the valuation will ultimately, at the time that we're going to flip it to the developer, we'll do an appraisal on it, and we'll determine highest and best value. I would think that higher and best value is probably commercial in that area because there's commercial immediately adjacent to it. But we've got it, you're suggesting it would be designated as agricultural, so that would be the valuation that will be put on it when an appraisal is contemplated or completed?
Through the mayor to Councillor Harris, I'd have to go through the appraisal itself and see how the appraisal was completed. I don't have those details off the top
Do
of
we
my
have
head.
an appraisal?
Appraisal has been completed. Further discussions, because I'll have to defer to the rest of the leadership team, but I do not, I'm unsure of how much I can reveal because this is maybe an in-camera item.
I'm not looking for
Yeah.
that because I understand the sensitivity of an
Yeah.
appraisal. I'm just saying that is information that is available for council should we ask.
Through Mayor Macon to Councillor Harris, I think when we do come forward with the disposition of this land and possible sale, those are excellent questions to ask. We don't have all the information to answer your questions today because we're just looking at the road closure.
Yeah, and I'm just looking forward past the closure because I anticipate there's no reason not to close this parcel of land. So thank you. I'll look forward to that information.
Councillor Rendawa?
Thanks for the presentation. Just on the responses received, could you just kind of expand or elaborate what the residents said about it?
Through the mayor, Councillor Dow, yes, I believe one response was that was against the road closure itself. It was, and just to, I believe it is in your council package. I'm not sure of the exact page number.
I think the package indicates that there's two responses, but our package only includes one, unless you're
Okay.
including the response on the response from Miss Dugan Barrows in the email.
There's two responses. Yeah. Okay. I'll speak to the first response by Nick Mason here. They were, as you know, they were aware against the closure itself, but I haven't reached out to Nick himself or herself, but I believe there may be some misunderstanding just from they're saying that development should occur in the two quarter sections to the south, and a lot of responses we receive when we've done other engagements is, you know, you should be doing development in your annex land. So I'm not too sure exactly what the intention behind that was, because we are discussing the Point of Pins area structure plan, which is in the lands that were annexed by the municipality. So I wasn't too sure on the intent of that one. And then the second one was the second response was from the applicant themselves. First, they were looking to register, but they also had some feedback in case for council to review. You know.
Thank you.
Councillor Wesley?
Awesome. Thank you. I just have some questions about ensuring that we get the best bang for our taxpayer dollar when we think about going to sell this. We're rezoning in AGS, and I presume then that means that when we get appraisal that we cannot talk about, that it would be appraised at agriculture. Is there a zoning maybe choice that we could alternatively use that would enhance the taxpayer's value so that when that appraisal does come out, it comes out at a higher value?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wesley. So as part of zoning would be one piece of the appraisal, but there's also the area structure plan and neighborhood structure plan eventually that you could refer to know that eventually these lands, yes, they're zoned as AGS now, but they do have a different plan in the end, which would be, for example, residential or commercial or whatever it may be. So yes, I would imagine that appraisal would have taken that under consideration too.
Okay. Now, from my stats brain point of view, I'm always concerned about appraisals because this will appraise the land as a typical agricultural zone, whereas this is not atypical. It really only has one probably potential customer, and that the value of that particular parcel to that one particular developer or buyer might be higher than average. How do we ensure through our process, maybe just in general, that we're getting what the value, we're realizing the maximum value for the sale of this? I guess that's more a negotiation thing. I just worry about appraisals are all based on averages, but this is not necessarily a typical average because of the unique position it is in any kind of developer parcel here.
Through Mayor Macon to Councillor Wesley, yes, there is a process in place where there are appraisals submitted by potential purchasers as well as by the city. They do use averages, absolutely. I think there are a lot of averages in the region for agricultural parcels that will be eventually urban land. And so that does get drawn from. The specifics, I don't have that in front of me today. We're still in the process of negotiating a price, but certainly our role is to look out for Fort Saskatchewan and for its ratepayers.
Okay, and before you sell, that comes back to council, right?
Correct.
Okay, I might circle back around. But.
Thank you. Councillor Blizzard?
I won't talk about the trees yet because that's an opinion that'll come later. But I do have a question here. So this land has only value to two people. Who owns the land that's kind of, I'm going to say, west of the existing apartments, but north of this piece? It's a triangular shape because it potentially could have value to that person too, at least part of it. You know, is there a way to, the last, right there, no, before that.
Before maybe this,
One where you're showing it looks like green, like a real picture.
okay.
That one. So just kind of in the middle of the blue strip, if you go up from that, close to the apartments, I mean, if somebody bought that piece of it, half of it, they could put another 2, 3, 4 apartment buildings there. Is there a different developer? Does the same person own the land that's below? I mean, we should do it so that it's not just one buyer potentially. I'm not against closing the road, but do you know what I mean?
Through the mayor to Councilor Blizzard, I'm unsure. I don't have an answer for you. Unfortunately, I'll have to defer.
Do you know what I mean? What I'm asking?
Through Mayor Macon to Councillor Blizzard. So are you asking if we've considered other purchasers for this?
Yeah, like
road
right now,
closure?
you know, when you have a one horse show, that person, I guess, could potentially be in control. Whereas, you know, they're the owner of the land north of that. I don't know what the potential is, but I'm just looking at the size of that. That's a pretty good chunk there. Somebody already owns, and with adding some more of that blue strip, you know, there's room for quite a bit of more apartment buildings or something. So, you know, they might be interested. Do we give that out? Do we do it in a way that potentially somebody else could buy it? I see someone behind you there.
Through the mayor to Councillor Blizzard, typically with land purchases, our commitment is that we will always present the offer. We have received a written request from a developer who's interested in purchasing this land. We are in the process of negotiating, and we will present that offer to council. But today the focus is really on the road closure, because regardless of whether or not we sell the land, we think the road closure the road designation is not appropriate for this site.
Fair enough. And tied in with that then, so is this typical that we wait for someone to come and say, hey, I want to buy that land that used to be a road before we change it or close the road? Because I believe we had the same thing along the highway last year.
Through Mayor Macon to Councillor Blizzard, yeah, it's typical that usually we have someone approach us and then we move forward. There are a few pieces of land within the city's inventory that we've gone, okay, maybe we should make this available to the public market. Those are larger parcels than the fragment with this site.
Okay, fair. Thank you.
Councillor Nguyen?
Yeah, further to this conversation, so how many landowners are adjacent to this road right away right now?
Through the mayor to Councilor Nguyen, appears to be, excluding the ones across from Wilshire Boulevard, it would be 4 as of right now that are adjacent.
Okay. And the reason I ask, I had the same concerns as Councillor Blizzard. Maybe this is for future. If we have a written offer already, if somebody who's interested in it, that's great. But would the city ever request a subdivision of their own merit for this? If if adjacent parcels were conducive to selling it to developers, basically segmented out, so that it made more sense for adjacent developer to incorporate that land into their own development or future developments. Is that kind of city planning procedure?
Through Mayor Macon, Councillor Nguyen, I think normally when there's a road closure, this is maybe a more substantial area of road. You would look to consolidate it to the nearest parcel. And so when you do have, small splinters or fragments because of the curvature of utilities, or it can be any number of things that create that fragmentation, you would seek to consolidate it with the nearest parcel. Because the length corresponds with the adjacent quarter section, it would make sense to consolidate it there if everything works out and if we're able to find an agreement. But again, that will come forward to council at a later date.
Right, exactly. So in the interest of staying on task, I could read the motion in, or was that what you were going to do?
We are in the public hearing right now, so there's no motion to be
yeah,
had.
Thanks again for that.
All right, if you are done, I'll go to Councillor Harris on round 2.
So the principle of highest and best use drives the evaluation of the property in the final instance.
Through Mayor Macon, yes, correct. That's the goal.
Thank you. Good. Enough said.
All right, thank you very much. That is all the questions for you. I know that we do have someone registered, so I'll get you to take your seats and then we'll call you back up after. All right, so this is the delegations part of the public hearing. We do have one speaker who is online. If you want to click on your WebEx, Maria Dugand Barros. Hopefully I didn't completely slaughter that name. Arcadius Geomatics. And she does not have a presentation, but she is here to answer questions. Maria, maybe you could just introduce yourself and the role you play in this project.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Maria Dugan. I work for Arcadius Geomatics, who was the applicant for the road closure. I just wanted to attend the public hearing just in case there was any questions that I could answer, but I think everything has been covered. I don't have any further questions or comments.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone that does have questions for the applicant? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Maria. Is there anybody else here who wishes to speak to this public hearing? Not seeing any. I'll invite administration to come back up. Hope you weren't comfortable yet. All right, before I close the public hearing, is there any further questions? Councillor Randawa?
So I know this is about the road closure, this public hearing, but my colleague to my right asked some good questions and it kind of sparked something for me. So this road closure, somebody from the public made an application to close the road so that then they can come and purchase the road from us. Is that kind of how it works, like at a high level? Like anybody can make any application for a road closure or something that is on city land and it would kind of go through this process? I'm a little confused, sorry, just a lot of back and forth.
Go ahead.
Through the mayor to councillor, that's correct. Anyone has the right to apply, right? As administration, we would review the application and we'd come with a recommendation. In this case, the recommendation was to pass the bylaw to close the road.
Okay, and I know it's a separate issue, so I won't get too much into it, but if this were to pass, anybody in the public has a right to make an offer? Like, are we going to list this publicly, or is this going to be just kind of quietly listed then? Like, that's where I have a issue with it. It kind of becomes like, a realtor having a pocket listing for a house.
Through Mayor Macon to Councillor Randawa, I think what you're getting at is that we need to be equitable with the public in terms of our land holdings.
For sure. Yeah.
The road right of way is a little different than other types of land. So, for example, if you were disposing of a fragment of a park site, that would have different rules under the MGA that we would need to follow. With the road closure, you're looking to attach it to adjacent land so that it's not standalone. The long linear parcel has problems in terms of developability. So you look to figure out what is the best way that this can develop to benefit the community long term. So it is a little bit different in that respect. So yeah, it is pretty typical if there's someone interested for administration to consider that and bring something forward if it's logical and makes sense from a planning perspective.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that is all the questions. I'll close the public hearing at 2:35, and we'll move into business arising. Taryn Samra presenting.
I do have both recommended motions up that council give second reading to bylaw C-15-26 as described in the council report, and then eventually it's third reading as well as described.
Thank you very much. What is the will of council? Councillor Noyan?
So I'll read in the motion that council give second reading to bylaw C-15-26 to close a portion of road plan 0421351 right of way.
I'll accept the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, this piece of roadway is actually nostalgic to me, as where I grew up was the it was the access that I used for Highway 21 when it curved south and tied into an approach to the highway, and it's a long time since that has actually been a functional roadway. But other than that, as administration mentioned, to stay on task, this is procedural. It's a unique parcel, and it's a road right of way that needs to be taken up by a developer in order so that we can gain contiguous development in that area, which is what is going on right now.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ketcher?
Yeah, and I'm going to support the motion. This is a remnant piece of road, and as we've seen the development occurring as it's moving west, we've had several different remnants of roadways, different accesses into Point of Pins that have turned into actually really nice trail systems as well. So again, it's an old piece of Strathcona County that was left to us, and so I guess we get a small benefit from this when we do finally make a sale on it. So I'll support it.
Thank you. Councillor Harris?
I'll support it as well. I don't think there's any alternative for us in this case. This is just one of those things we have to do from time to time. It helps to clean up the planning framework. My issue with the trees, as long as that's going to be a discussion we can have with the developer in terms of highest and best use, and that was part of my question earlier about the valuation process, is that I think that road right of way integrated with adjacent potential uses, be they commercial or residential, ultimately inures to a better benefit for the city. And so I'm confident that our administration will do a good job in representing our interests in that regard. And we'll look forward to continuing this. And I'm looking forward to the developer bringing forward their development framework going forward. So I think that's good for us moving forward. Thanks.
Councillor Blizzard?
Yeah, I'll support this also. I think it's the right thing to do. Close the road because it hasn't been used, so it's technically closed anyway. You can't go on it. I do want to comment that I feel, in all this big area that's being changed into residential, there's a tiny space of green, and I appreciate that and hope it sure stays.
Councillor Noyan, do you wish to close? Nothing further. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. And that is carried unanimously. All right, moving right along, 8.1. I'll open. Oh, I'm sorry. I always missed third reading on that. Go ahead. Councillor Noyan, do you wish to continue? Public hearings always get me. Go ahead. I tricked you. It was my bad. That's on me. Yeah. In 15 years, I'll be a natural. Go ahead, Councillor Noyan.
forgive you because I try to jump in with the motion during the public hearing as well. So it's that kind of Monday. So I'll do the motion that the council give third reading to bylaw C-1526 to close a portion of road plan 0421351 right away.
Thank you. I'll accept the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, just one point that I was going to mention is that I think developers adjacent to the tree stand, since that is a discussion with this right of way as it goes into the tree stand, they might have the impression that council is adamant to keep the tree stand. So I think the longevity of that, it needs to be an important discussion because I think it's prime highway frontage. I'm not sure the utility of it, given what comprises that tree stand. So I think that's quite a good point to make when we're talking about this area, and hopefully they get the right impression when they from council when they submit development applications.
Thank you, Councillor Ketcher.
I just got to make a comment because we're talking about trees, but when you look at where the road is, or the road right away is, that grew over with trees. Those trees didn't exist before the road existed. So I just find it a little bit humorous as we're talking about, the protection of these trees because they're actually on a road right away. But I'm supporting the motion, but I'm just throwing it out there because I hear us talking about these and that's my comment on the trees.
Councillor Nguyen, anything to close? Oh. All right, I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. No one brings up trees for Roseburn, okay? That is carried unanimously also. Thank you. All right. We'll welcome up Scott Purich for 8.1, bylaw C-826, amend land use bylaw C-2320, Roseburn Stage 1B redistricting, public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at 2:41.
Okay, so thank you, Mayor and members of Council. So my name is Scott Purich. I'm a planner here with the Planning and Development Department. I'm here to present bylaw C-8-26 for second and third reading. Bylaw C-8-26 is a land use bylaw amendment in order to redistrict lands within the Roseburn area. So I'll begin with a brief overview of the details on the application, the site location, and the proposed redistricting. We'll then speak to policy conformance, administration's position, and the public communication process, and conclude with the recommendation. So the subject lands are located within the Roseburn area and are generally bounded by South Ridge Boulevard, 92nd Street, and Greenfield Link, which will extend further south here. The amendment area is generally highlighted in blue as shown on the map. So bylaw C-8-26 proposes the redistricting of approximately 0.59 hectares from the Agricultural General South District, or AGS, to the Parks and Recreation District, PR. So this change is to accommodate future park and amenity space for the surrounding neighborhood. Please note this is not the entirety of the park space intended for this location, but the goal of this amendment is to introduce the amenity space for nearby residents, and the remaining park balance will come back to council for redistricting at a future date. So on screen is the current Roseburn area structure plan. The amendment area is highlighted in purple here. As noted before, this is only a portion of the Central Park, and the remainder will come at a later stage. And the proposed bylaw C-8-26 is in alignment with the ASP. Similarly above is the Northeast Roseburn neighborhood structure plan, with the amendment area highlighted in purple again. The proposed bylaw C-8-26 is in alignment with the NSP as well. So the proposed amendment conforms to the Municipal Development Plan, the Roseburn Area Structure Plan, and the Northeast Roseburn Neighborhood Structure Plan, and no amendments are required to those to these planning documents. So administration supports the proposed amendment as it provides accessible amenity space, contributes to a communal space for the neighborhood, and supports walkability, recreation, and resident health. So notice of the public hearing was advertised in the Fort Saskatchewan Record for 2 consecutive weeks prior to the hearing, the public hearing date. Additionally, written notice was mailed to all property owners within 100 meters of the subject lands and to the adjacent quarter sections. This public hearing was also posted to the city's website and social media pages. Administration is recommending that bylaw C8-26 be given second and third reading as described in the accompanying council report. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To see if anyone has any questions for you, go to Councillor Wesley.
Sure. Thank you very much, Scott. Now this park, just so I understand it correctly, this park is a small component of what would be an overall larger park?
Through the mayor, that is correct, yes.
And so what happens to this smaller parcel should, for whatever reason, subsequent stages of the development are delayed or they don't go on? What happens to this 0.59 hectares?
Through the mayor. So this space is going to be given to the city. It's under our control, and it will be maintained as a park space indefinitely until such a time as otherwise council decides.
Okay. Okay. I look to you if I think I'm going over 3, but I don't see anybody screaming, so I will continue on. I'm just curious, as we move forward with this park, will there be scope for the people in the general area as they move in to have maybe some input as to what that park looks like, the amenities of that park, and so on?
Through the mayor, so with the Roseburn area structure plan, there is currently plans for the park as a whole. For this portion, it'll likely just be maintained as a small green space for the community to use and utilize until the future stages are developed and built out.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Perfect answer. If I could ask one follow-up question to what I asked you at the end of last time we talked, is I'm still curious as to why detention and correction services are discretionary use in a park.
Mm-hmm. I apologize. I imagine that the reasoning behind that would just be for, as I mentioned before, this would be land controlled by the city. So if that use ever came up as needed, it's something that we as an administration and the city have discretion to add where needed.
I'm just curious. I know I've sandbagged you twice with that question, so I appreciate your answer, Scott. Thank you.
To Mayor Macon, or through Mayor Macon to Councillor Wesley, I apologize as well. That one slipped my memory, but it is something that I'd like to take a look at with the new land use bylaw project. So thank you for flagging that.
Oh, no problem. Thanks, Janelle.
You're good. All right. I'm not seeing any more. I don't, before you get up and move, I don't have anyone registered to speak on this one. Is there any delegations here that wish to speak to this matter? Not seeing any. Welcoming administration back to the table. Is there any further questions before we close the public hearing? Not seeing any. I'll close the public hearing at 2:48 to move into business arising. Go ahead, Mr. Peerage.
Yeah. So it is being recommended that council give second and third reading, and that is it.
Perfect. All right. And I do promise to do second and third reading. So, Councillor Harris, are you wanting to make the motion?
I most certainly would. So I would move that council give second reading to bylaw C8-26 to amend land use bylaw C2320 to redistrict a portion of Northeast 18, 5422 West 4th Meridian from AGS, Agricultural General South, to PR, Parks and Recreation District. I'm glad to see that we're moving forward with the development of the annexed lands. So it's a natural process of evolution going forward. So I'm glad to see that's happening, as well as what's happening in West Park. So I think this is good on the east side of the city. So we support it from that standpoint.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing anyone else weighing in. Do you wish to close?
Nothing more.
All right, I'll close the motion then. Please cast your vote. I should have just left your mic on. Do you want to just click back on for third? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. I'll go for third, Councillor Harris.
So moved.
Perfect. Do you want to speak to it?
Nothing more.
Not seeing any questions. Do you wish to close?
Nothing more.
All right. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. Perfect, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we are trucking that right along. I think we can go and do 10.2 before we take a quick break. Perfect. All right, so moving on to 10.2, capital project deferral. Grant Schaefer presenting.
Good afternoon, Mayor Macon and members of council. My name is Grant Schaefer, Director of Fleet Facilities Engineering. I'm here today to present a request to defer construction of two capital projects from 2026 to 2027. In 2026, there's currently 27 projects underway within engineering, with 17 of them to be planned to be under construction. Unfortunately, one of three of our engineering coordinators has moved on from the city. We came up with a good opportunity and decided it was time to go on, which has put resourcing at a premium for us and has made us look at the priority of the projects that we have in front of us and what we can actually get accomplished within the year. As we went through the projects, we were looking at the different projects in terms of impacts to people, impacts to plans, and whether we thought we could still get them done if we couldn't give all the resources we needed to at the time. So our plan is to defer a portion of neighborhood rehab project, 109th Street specifically. The tender package is nearly complete, but hasn't been posted yet. So it's a project that if we tried to get forward with it right now, we may not get done before winter. We didn't want to take that chance. The other one, there's a sump pump retrofit program for 2026. This one we probably would have recommended deferring whether somebody left or not. Just the budget for it was at a point where we couldn't do the whole section within 1 year. So combining the 2 years means we can get it all done at once within 1 year with one disruption. Again, this tender's not been posted, but the design has been complete. So our recommendation is that council defer construction of a portion of capital project 26200, which is 109th Street neighborhood rehabilitation, as well as construction of capital project 19018, the 2026 sump pump retrofit to 2027. I guess as a note, the funding for these we'd like to carry forward into next year so that we can continue the programs and double them up next year. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I just have one I'll ask first. The 109th Street neighborhood rehab, I'm assuming the risk is low. Like we're not expecting that infrastructure is on the brink of failing, and putting it back a year is a huge risk to us. Can you just talk about risks of that project?
Yes, to the mayor. I guess it's no more risk than any other street. It's part of the overall program where it's reached more or less the end of its useful life. So I don't want to say nothing's going to happen because there are old water mains that could break any time, but they are on the program to be done, and the plan next year would then be to do 3 blocks rather than 2, and then as we're growing this program, 3 blocks would kind of be the norm, I think, starting in 2028, sorry, trying to get my years right.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Councillor Ketcher?
Can you just reaffirm what the funding source is?
Through the mayor to Councillor Ketcher, for 109th Street, it is pretty close to 50-50 split between utilities and taxes. And for sump pump, I believe it is the part of the annual capital
So it's
allocation.
so pretty well all tax funded then?
That one is yes.
Okay, so I guess my next question is there not an opportunity, even though you've lost somebody for a period of time, to contract someone to come in and help get this work done?
Through the mayor to Councillor Ketcher, the issue becomes bringing them up to speed and get them to a point where you can give that project, not necessarily to that new person, but to backfill all the tasks that need to be done. And especially with this sump pump, we couldn't do the full block and a half that's left within the funding that we have this year, so we want to double that up anyway, so we need it all done within 1 year. And 109th Street, it's just going to be tough to, we wouldn't want to overcommit to starting construction and not being able to wrap it up by the end of the year.
Okay, and the dollar amount for 109th Street was how much?
Through the mayor to Councillor Ketcher, it's about $2 million. It's a portion of the 5.6 of the whole program funding.
Okay, so I guess my question is, rather than just, I can maybe understand deferring the sump pump one if you don't have enough money, but if you don't have enough money or you're just deferring that, why doesn't the money go back into reduce, like if we're not spending it and then rebudget for it next year?
Through the mayor to Councillor Ketcher, so the intent would be to keep the program funded because we are behind or falling behind in terms of what our funding level should be to be able to renew the whole city within the life cycle of the infrastructure. So if we keep the funding there, then we can ramp up the program, doing 3 blocks next year, 3 the year after, and continuing to grow to, I think we max out about 4 blocks a year within the next 4 or 5 years.
Okay, I'll save my comments for discussion and debate. Thank you.
Councillor Wesley?
Yeah, thanks, Grant. I'm just curious. I'm trying to get at the source of your confidence. We were sort of at capacity before this person left, and then we're going to add an extra project to next year on top of everything else that we've already scheduled. And I'm just trying to get a sense for why that seems to be reasonably confident that given those capacity constraints that we already know we have, why do we think that all of a sudden when we add more that necessarily things will kind of work out even better than...
So through the mayor to Councillor Wesley to maybe give a preview of what may or may not be in the budget yet. We are going to be asking for another resource for 27. That was been part of our plan. Because as we've grown these programs, we need the resources to be able to manage them.
Okay. I'm just curious about in your package you were talking about provincially mandated engineering review timelines being at risk. I'm just wondering if you maybe give me some background or color on the legal and financial implications of that kind of thing.
So through the mayor to Councillor Wesley, and I may need some help with the actual timelines, but when planning receives applications for development permits, I think those are the big ones. They have a turnaround time that means that they have to be able to make a decision within 4 or 6 weeks. I'm not exactly sure the time. Engineering has to do a review of those packages as well. So that's the timelines that we're talking about there.
Okay, just one last follow-up, because I know Councillor Randalba wants to talk about sump pumps. What are the implications to us if we miss those deadlines?
I would
Bad happens.
Need to look for some help on what those actually are.
There you go, Janelle. I'm sending all your staff to help look for help. I'm tormenting everybody today.
That's why we're a diverse team. I'm not 100% sure, so I'd like to phone a friend too and loop back to you on that question.
Sure.
Okay.
No problem. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Grant.
Councillor Randawa on sump pumps.
Yeah, not actually. Maybe on some pumps. We'll see. We'll see. Mr. Schaefer, thank you for the presentation. I think we're talking about 2 things here, or at least in my opinion. One is the projects themselves. Now there is kind of that capacity constraint that my good friend Councillor Wesley was talking about. So are you saying that the learning kind of from this is that for next year we'll have to kind of grow the staffing here to manage the growth and projects we have?
Through the Mayor to Councilor Randawa, that's our plan, is we hope to be able to grow the staffing to be able to manage the workloads that are coming in the extra development areas, as well as the programs growing.
Okay. And then for the projects, so correct me if I'm wrong, so for some pumps, you're saying that we need to kind of bundle a couple years of allocation so that we can get it all done in one go. Is that kind of fair?
That's the plan, yes.
Okay. And then is there, I'm assuming there's efficiencies in doing it more in one go rather than kind of splitting it up?
Through the Mayor to Councilor Randawa, there are some contractor efficiencies. You only have to mobilize once. Even from the neighborhood, they're only disturbed once because it's not a fun program. We understand that. So if we only have to do it once, it's best.
Okay. And then for the second part, which is the roads, so am I correct that we're quite actually underfunded right now in our neighborhood road rehab program? Like I remember you going through that big graph with me a couple months ago, and it looked like we were on the wrong side of that. Is that kind of fair?
So through the Mayor to Councilor Randawa, if the overall plan right now we're underfunded. Over the next 5 years, we start actually building a reserve. So that we'll be funding more than the planned work, so that when we get into the heavy years of Pineview, we have a reserve built up, so we're not having to have a major tax impact at that point.
Okay. And when we looked at the neighborhood road rehab, that was kind of, I think, the consultant strategy as well, to start building up multiple years of budgeting so that you can go out and do big tranches of Pineview and so forth as we go forward.
Through the Mayor Councilor Randawa, so the consultant's report itself broke it down into decades.
Yeah.
We took that a little bit further just to try and figure out how we could smooth that out and kind of maximize it, because we can't. It's going to be tough to go into Pineview and shut a quarter of it down we're going to have to spread it out and try and balance it as we go.
Okay. Okay. And do you know exactly how much we're underfunded right now?
Through the Mayor to Councilor Randawa, I believe it's about $4.5 million a year this year.
Okay.
In today's dollars.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Blizzard.
Yeah, so we're underfunded because we're trying to do a lot at once, right? With the expectation sewers collapse, or
through the Mayor to Councilor Blizzard. So we're the intent of the program is that we're going to rebuild the city every 100 years, 75 to 100 years, 75 in the older stuff, 100 years in the newer stuff. So we're hitting that 75-year mark for that first oldest stuff that we have. So we're not funding to a point where we could do it all in that time frame. So we're going to extend a little bit out beyond the 75, try and make sure we don't add too much risk. So we're trying to do what we need to do, but we didn't grow that program all as we went. So to hit it hard right away was a major impact. So we're trying to smooth that in. Then we'll overfund for a little bit so that we have a more even funding.
it's all guesswork in a sense. It's like having a fence in the backyard. You could change it this year, you could change it in 3 years, it might still stand.
It might, but you'd want to plan for that work regardless.
For sure.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, and I don't know which one, but I know the sump pump, it's one of these things we're plodding along with it. What would be the harm in just pushing it all forward? Like instead of saying next year we're going to do double, do we just bump it all, a year further on? And that way, because I know we're looking at a few projects now that we're going to be short on because they've come over budget, we would free up that for this year at least for some of the other projects.
Through the Mayor to Councilor Blizzard, I think specifically the sump pump within Sienna, there's about a block left to finish off, and with the work that needs to be done, the funding isn't enough to do all of that. So it's going to be a 2-year project. So if we defer a year, then it's 2 years starting next year. If we can lump them together, we can get it all done next year. So that's, I guess, the nuance on that.
Yeah, tough decision. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harris, you wanted to wait, correct? Or did you have a question?
No, I'm going to make a statement, but I'll wait until the resolution's on the floor.
Okay, Councillor Ketcher.
So I have to ask the loaded question. Why are we even having this conversation? It's in the capital budget. For example, the water tower got deferred. We didn't have to come back to council to ask for a deferral motion. I feel like this is more just setting us up for a conversation. So if it's in the capital budget and you don't get it done this year, it automatically just moves to the next year because, so why are we actually even here? Because why do you need a council resolution for this?
Through the mayor, it was my decision to do this. These are bigger money deferrals than projects that we've done in the past. I think we've deferred projects a number of times in my 10 years. We've never brought them to council. This is just about being transparent with council about where things are at. I think that's what the change of practice is about. Council gave us a certain amount of money to do a certain number of projects that were designated as 2026 projects. And for me to just hold them over for this amount of money, we want to be upfront. I think that's all it is.
And I understand that, but I just find it's really not what we typically do. And within the powers that you have, you can move them across. And I guess I just asked this question because in the past, you would have just said, oh, by the way, here's an email, these ones won't get done. So I'm just really questioning why we're spending our time discussing this.
Yeah, through your worship, the intent is to just try to be transparent with what our intentions are with these couple of projects. There's nothing else behind it than that. Wish it was more complex but.
So what's the risk if we say, no, we're not going to defer it?
Yeah, we will do whatever we can to make these projects happen.
Are you good?
Yeah.
And I apologize, Councillor Nguyen, you should have gone last on first round, so my apologies.
The last comments are tied into my question here, which is, tell me if my statement's correct. We don't really have an option with this, considering that even in a tender year where they're out on time, I've lived in a neighborhood who's recently undergone neighborhood rehabilitation. I've seen them not begin until mid-June to late June, and they're pushing it to finish before freeze end of October. So given that this tender isn't out right now, I think it is it is completed and set to be out, but then we have to get that back, the bids back. This can't get done this year. Is that correct? I mean, somebody would be really rushing and there would probably be cost overages if council did not approve this recommended motion.
Through the mayor to Councillor Nguyen, if we tried to push this through, we would have to put some hard dates in there and see what the tenders came back as to whether or not anybody would even commit to doing it. But,
right.
We would have to put those hard dates in there to make sure that we don't start it without.
Yeah, and I'd be hard pressed to find a company who would be willing to do this on this strict of timelines at this stage of the game. A comment you made, just two smaller questions in the council or the agenda package, is that the sump pump program you have a hypothesis that doing it two smaller projects in 1 year could help with contractor efficiencies. Can you make a note to come back to council to see if we did actually realize the savings of doing this in 1 year, the two phases in 1 year rather than one?
Through the mayor to council, and we can make that note. It's tough to really evaluate without doing tenders each way, but just intuitively, you'd save on mobilization, demobilization, because you only have to do it once instead of twice.
And that would really be all then. Okay. And just for council's record, how much do we increase the neighborhood rehab program by? I think it was 3 budgets ago, correct? Because we added quite a bit of money into that program.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Nguyen, it's increased about $500,000 a year for the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay, thank you for that reminder.
Thank you. And Ms. Smith-Duguid has a response for Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Your Mayor. If the city wasn't able to meet the timelines required by the province, it could be deemed a refusal, and then the application would go to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board if we weren't able to negotiate an extension with the applicant. So basically, it opens us up to potentially additional processes and extended timelines.
Okay. Thank you, Jill, for that quick response time. I'm genuinely feeling spoiled by the great treatment I get from city administration. I'm going to kind of expect these kind of timelines to be followed all the time. When you do something fabulous, expectations are starting to increase. So just so you know, fair warning. Anyway, thank you, Grant. I'm just curious about with the sump pump retrofit. Do we notify residents that hey, we were going to do your sump pump, now we're not going to do it for some period of time? Do we give them a heads up on that, or?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wesley, we have given some notice that the plan was to be the sump pump plus 109th Street. We've had some conversations with residents leading up to this, so we will go back and say we're going to defer it. It'll be next summer rather than this summer.
Okay, and
if that's
how is our recruitment for this new position going?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wesley, we've made some internal movements, but there's now an external posting that needs to happen to backfill everything.
Okay, awesome, Grant. Mayor Macon, if I may, could I make the motion?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I move that council defer construction of a portion of capital project 26200, 109th Street Neighborhood Rehabilitation and construction of capital project 19019, 2026 sump pump retrofit to 2027. Wow, that's
Do you wish to speak to in
very
favor?
wonderful. No, I have nothing to add. I think this is sort of it's a make sense sort of motion that we probably don't really have much choice to do anything otherwise. But I do appreciate Grant and your team in keeping track of these things and working the best that you can in order to work with the very limited and competitive market for resources that you face. So,
Thank you very much. Councillor Harris?
I'll support the deferral on principle. I think, though, that I've been around for a long time, as Councillor Ketcher has, and we have intimate knowledge of how engineering projects were undertaken in the past. I respect the fact that it is a different environment from a project standpoint that we operate under today. But in the past, virtually all of these types of engineering projects were contracted out to outside engineering expertise. And because we did not have internal resources. So obviously we've gotten to the point now where we've assumed those responsibilities with our in-house resources. And I think there's some value in that. I think in the context, I don't know if I necessarily agree with the comment that was made about not being able to get things done with external resources. There are many external consulting engineering firms that could take on work like this, and they would do it in a heartbeat. It would take some leadership in-house to make sure that everything moves accordingly, but that's the way it was in the past. We had one engineering person and another, we basically had 1.5 people dedicated to engineering back in my day. And so now we have more resources, but we also have more projects, and I totally get that and I understand that. And I think this probably is prudent in that regard, and I'll support it in that context. But by the same token, I think sometimes you have to go outside to get resources that are appropriate when the need arises. Deferral is another alternative. I'm not sure, if I can totally support it, but in that context, I will support the resolution going forward. But I had to make that statement because I think Councillor Ketcher touched on that from that standpoint.
Thank you. Councillor Ondawa?
Yeah, thank you very much. Great motion by Councillor Wesley. It's a strong motion, and I think I'm going to have to support it myself. I actually echo a lot of the comments both Councillor Wesley and Councillor Harris made. I think we do have to defer this, but I think as we look forward, we have to defer it because it's so underfunded, this neighborhood program, and this would, not deferring it would only make that program less funded as we look out. But as we as a council look at approving large expenditures and large capital projects, it concerns me that maybe we don't have enough redundancy in our organization to withstand the odd employee leaving here and there. I would hate to see Mr. Schaefer leave for greener pastures in the private sector and then wonder what happens to a lot of these big capital projects. So I do agree with the comment Councillor Harris made that, perhaps we have to start looking more at contracting things out and having some programs just be permanently contracted out, because we as an organization, I believe, need the redundancy and that flexibility to be able to withstand changes in employment and just the environment. Because if we as a council kind of go out and raise the dollars to go out and do large capital expenditures, we also need that, I would say, confidence that that project will get completed in time. So I look forward to kind of seeing how that conversation unfolds throughout the next budget.
Thank you. There's nothing green on the other side of the fence, Mr. Schaefer. There's nothing to see out there. Councillor Ketcher.
So I'm going to be the fly in the ointment here. As I said before, I'm not sure why we're even discussing this, because I understand transparency. I understand in the past, if a project wasn't going to get done, it could be carried over and council was just notified. I think this is just about raising some awareness and letting us have a conversation. Because I want to point out the risk when you bring something like this forward. And the comments that I hear, the risk isn't just about saying, well, what if we don't defer it? Because council could say, we can cancel these, put the money back in, and have it rebudgeted next year. Now, I'm not hearing that council wants to do that, but I just want to make a point to administration. That's the risk that you're playing with when you're bringing something like this to us, because it doesn't require us to actually have to do this. The money's in the budget. If it doesn't get spent this year, you continuously always carry the monies over from project to project. So I don't know if I'll support it or not, but I just really want you to know what the risk is when you do something like this. And in the future, you could run the risk that, we just say, well, let's cancel it and then try for the money next year again. But I'm not thrilled with this coming to council this way. Thank you.
Councillor Nguyen?
Yeah, I actually appreciate this a lot coming to council. It probably could have been a report, and it's not against what you're saying. I think council needs to be aware that these are the challenges that you're facing, and these are two big capital projects. They're significantly important for infrastructure and replacement of it, and the forever upkeep of that on our roadways, and which affects neighborhood living. So I do appreciate the report and look forward to the sump pump retrofit being completed. I would like to echo that. It'd be nice to see some efficiencies with mobilization. That's what I figured the cost savings could be. So we might have stumbled upon something that can help save some city money in that area. So I will support the motion, because actually I don't really think we have a choice and are putting administration and engineering department in a very tricky spot if this motion was defeated today. So I appreciate it coming forward and for the information you gave us.
Thank you very much. I'm going to support the motion. I appreciate this coming forward for transparency, and the reasons within the report are sound to me. Makes sense that we do this for both of these projects. Not seeing anyone else. Do you wish to close, Councillor Wesley?
Yes. Yeah, other than to say, I think it's a good thing that this did come forward in the interest of transparency. And I think councillors should have an opportunity that, when the administration brings something to us, that maybe we do say no. And I think thank you for bringing this up, so we continue to have that kind of flexibility. Last thing I want to say is just to echo what Mayor Macon said, is Grant, there are no greener pastures. We love you in Fort Saskatchewan. The rest of the world is a hellscape. And I think I'll end with that.
And I will close the motion. Please cast your vote. That goes for all of you. And that is carried. All right, we will take a break. It's 3:19. We'll come back at 3:30. Thank you very much. All right, welcome back. We're moving on to 11.1. We already have Jeremy Eman sitting there ready to go. Bylaw C 2126, 2026 property tax rate for 3 readings.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. My name is Jeremy Eman, Chief Financial Officer, and with me today is Shannon Andruko, Manager, Budget and Financial Planning. We're here to present the 2026 Property Tax Bylaw, C21-26, and to request 3 readings by Council. The purpose of Bylaw C21-26 is to establish the 2026 municipal property tax rates in accordance with the Municipal Government Act and Property Tax Policy FIN 27-C. The tax rates are designed to generate the revenue required to fund programs and services approved by Council in the 2026 municipal budget. In addition to municipal taxes, the City collects requisitions on behalf of other authorities, namely the Province of Alberta for education property taxes and designated industrial property assessments, and the Heartland Housing Foundation to support seniors' housing. Requisitions are set externally, and as such, the City has no discretion over their amounts. Council approved the 2026 municipal budget on December 9th, 2025. After budget approval, 2 further adjustments were made. The addition of $75,000 in one-time funding for the roads snow removal growth plan and a $262,500 adjustment for local transit buses within the 2026 capital budget. These adjustments did not change the overall property tax revenue requirement as approved by Council. Growth assessment revenue represents property taxes the City collects on the value of new construction and improvements completed during the past year. At the time of budget approval, growth assessment revenue was estimated at $2.14 million. This past spring, the city's assessments were finalized, and the actual growth assessment revenue was confirmed at $1.51 million. This resulted in a one-time assessment revenue shortfall of approximately $634,000 compared to the original budget estimate. Under Section 8 of the Property Tax Policy, assessment revenue shortfalls are to be funded through the Financial Stabilization and Contingency Reserve, and future budgets are adjusted to reflect actual assessment outcomes rather than estimates. This slide shows the combined impact of municipal, education, and Heartland Housing Foundation taxes for a sample residential property. The sample property has a 2026 assessed value of $491,700, reflecting a market value increase of approximately 9.5% over last year. For this property, municipal property taxes increased by $174.45, or 7.17%. Education taxes increased by $81.39, or 7.01%. Heartland Housing Foundation taxes decrease by $1.93, or 4.92%, and the combined annual tax increase is $253.90, or approximately $21 per month, which represents an overall increase of 6.99% over 2025. And for non-residential properties, using a sample non-residential property with an assessed value of approximately $1.09 million, which reflects a market value increase of 2.17% over last year. For this property, municipal taxes increased by $764.44, or 7.17%. Education taxes increased by $515.83, or 12.88%. Heartland Housing Foundation taxes decreased by $10.56, or 11.25%. And the combined annual tax increase is $1,269.70, or approximately $106 per month, which represents an overall increase of 8.6% over 2025. And just a few items to note with respect to education taxes. They're distributed between the residential and non-residential classes using equalized assessments as determined by the province, which can lead to varying impacts to each class. And within the 2026 provincial budget, the province increased the 2026 education property tax requisition, reflecting its continued policy to fund approximately 1/3 of education operating costs through education property taxes. And lastly, just as a caveat, these tax impacts are estimates only and reflect property value changes similar to those in the overall market. So depending on how an individual property's value changes relative to similar properties within the same assessment class, Actual impacts could be more or less. The bylaw reflects legislated conditions as per order in council 247/2019 related to annexed lands from Strathcona County. These conditions apply until the year 2049, such that the annexed properties are taxed at the lower of the city's or county's municipal tax rate. For 2026, annexed residential properties will use Strathcona County's municipal tax rate, and annexed non-residential properties will use the city's municipal tax rate. Administration is recommending two actions for council's consideration. First, that council approve funding the $634,270 assessment revenue shortfall through the Financial Stabilization and Contingency Reserve, consistent with Section 8 of the Property Tax Policy. And secondly, that council give 3 readings to Bylaw C21-26, providing for the collection of the 2026 property taxes as set out in Appendix A attached to the May 12, 2026 Request for Decision Report. Administration is requesting 3 readings of the bylaw be given in order to meet the legislated notice requirements and allow the tax notices to be distributed on time. And with that, our presentation is concluded. We're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll go to questions, or if someone wants to start the motion train, you are also welcome to do that. Councillor Harris.
I thought that what we were talking about the last time we were talking about budget, that the mill rate increase would end up around just a little under 7%. And you're showing a typical residential property a certain value, 7.17%. What is the actual mill rate? Because ultimately people are going to want to know what the actual municipal mill rate increase is. Is it 6.97 or 9 or whatever, or 7.17?
Through the mayor to Councillor Harris. So once we go through all of the numbers and we've gone through the changes in assessment with the finalized numbers, the actual mill rate increase based on the budget alone is 7.17%.
Okay, so we didn't get it under 7%, because I remember there were a couple of motions to withdraw some reserve funding to buy the impact down. So we haven't bought it down enough, in my opinion, from that standpoint, because I thought, I was okay if it was under 7. And it's marginally higher than 7 now, so I guess I have to consider that. So, thank you.
Councillor Blizzard.
I'm just prepared to make the motion.
Go ahead.
Like.
Start
Okay.
with motion 1.
I'll make a motion that council approve addressing the $634,270 assessment revenue shortfall through the Financial Stabilization and Contingency Reserve in accordance with Section 8 of the Property Tax Policy, FIN-027-C. And in speaking to this, we have to figure it out. So I guess this is the best way to do it. If someone would like to amend it to take some more out and keep our taxes under 7, I'd be open to that.
Thank you very much. Not seeing anybody weighing in. All right, now they're starting to come on. Councillor Wesley, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm just maybe a little bit curious. So we have this assessment shortfall coming through our stabilization reserve, and then we had the I think it was 1.9 million, 1.88 million that we took out around budget time for about 2.5 million. At what point do you think? So this is your opinion. At what point do you think that this drawdown pattern starts to compromise the reserve's intention as an emergency buffer? At what point do you start to get concerned that we've withdrawn too much or taken out too much?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wesley, Mr. Fleming might want to weigh in as well, but I would just start by saying that in terms of its optimal balance, we did review that at the time the annual report was presented, as well as the motion to move the 2025 operating budget surplus was moved to the Financial Stabilization and Contingency Reserve. To your point, though, I think that that particular reserve is designed to cover off contingencies, losses of revenue, disasters, that sort of thing, unexpected expenditures. Right now, the balance in that reserve does exceed the optimal balance, which we want to hold on to about at least 2 months worth of operating expenses. That's what our optimal balance is. I guess a word of caution always when we dip into this reserve, that we want to be careful that of what we're doing, and it's obviously council's discretion to do so. But
Awesome. Thanks.
Counselor Ketcher?
And I'm just reaffirming what I read in the report. The 632,000 is a one-time reduction in revenues because of a change that happened in industry. So those funds we anticipate will be back in play for next year.
through the mayor to Councillor Ketcher, that is correct. That's the way I understand it as well.
Okay, yeah. So I will support the motion because that's what the Financial and Stabilization Reserve is for, to get us through any little hiccups. And we just put 7 million in it, so I think I'm good with this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll support the motion. I don't love using the Financial Stabilization Reserve for covering ongoing costs. I've said that before. I don't consider this an emergency. You know, I don't consider this a disaster. I will say, like, there's a lot of money that we just put in it, so I am okay with this, but certainly from an ongoing perspective, we wouldn't want to continue to look at this as what we use to reduce taxes. So, but for this year, I do think that the reserve is healthy, and I will support doing this. I wouldn't support reducing it any further just to get it under 7%. I think it says that the average residential increase will be, if I'm not mistaken, $21 and something a month, and I think that that is reasonable, especially with the things that we are dealing with, especially a new aquatics program. So I will support the motion as it is written. Councillor Harris.
So we just had a surplus of $7.5 million that we put into reserves.
Yes.
Through the mayor to Councillor Harris, just be mindful that 1.1 of that was the utility surplus, so it was about 6.2 that was actually related to operations.
Yeah, I'm talking in general terms. The total quantum was $7.5 million. So that was not a bad addition to the reserve balances from that standpoint. And I'm not suggesting.
Just bring
I'm
it
not
closer.
suggesting.
Sorry, just hit your mic again.
You go away for a couple of months, and what happens? You lose it all. Sorry, guys. Yeah, no, I'm okay with where it is at, and I'll support this from that standpoint. Just the question I have. So last year, what was the mill rate increase that we had?
Through the mayor to Councillor Harris, just flipping pages here. The municipal property tax increase.
Yeah, I don't care about the education tax because we have no control over that.
For residential and non-residential was 5.4%.
Yeah, so ultimately we have, as a council and as administration, we've been pretty responsible in relation to our impact on taxes to the public, to our taxpayers. And this is an anomaly year, obviously. We have a better opportunity going forward with the projected assessment growth in our municipality to ultimately allow us to continue to deliver the projects and the services that our residents are looking for. And again, this is a big year. We're going to have a new fire hall and we're going to have an aquatic facility, and we have to pay for that. So those are trade-offs against those opportunities. So I'll support it on that basis. So thank you for answers to those questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Blizzard, would you like to close?
Nothing else.
Thank you. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. Thank you very much. That is carried unanimously. Councillor Blizzard on motion 2.
To the mayor, just one little comment here. So we would like to, if council decides to go for 3 readings of the bylaw, we have a slightly amended wording for the motion since there are 2 appendixes of the same bylaw number. So for clarity, we changed the motion.
Do you want to put it on the screen?
To include wording as set out in Appendix 1. Oh, yes, 1 second.
So once it comes up on the screen, then you can go ahead and move it.
Sorry about that. There, so the only change it says, as set out in Appendix A attached to the May 12th, 2026 request for decision.
All right, go ahead. Oh, sorry, your mic's off. Go ahead.
I make a motion that council give first reading to bylaw C21-26, providing for the collection of the 2026 property taxes as set out in Appendix A, attached to the May 12th, 2026 request for decision.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak to it?
No, I think this is something that needs to be done.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Councillor Nguyen.
I just have a question that might be a little bit out of scope of your department, but most people sign up for monthly payments of their property taxes. So this information would be taken into account by a bank when calculating and predicting that monthly tax amount and the increase to it every year corresponding with our mill rate increase. When do they get this information to be able to adjust their calculations accordingly to reflect for homeowners, so that's accurate in the 1 year time where I believe it's withdrawn in June of every year?
Through Councillor,
If you know about
sorry.
that, but and
Through Mayor Macon to Councillor Nguyen. In answer to your question, so when the assessment notices go out to property owners that are on the current Fort electronic payment plan, they'll notify on that notice as to what their payments will change come July.
Okay.
If that hopefully answers your question.
Yeah, it does perfectly. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Randawa?
Yeah, just on this, I'll be voting against it, just to say consistent is how I voted against the budget. I think the budget just accelerates spending a lot faster than we looked at finding efficiencies, and I just don't think that's really sustainable in the long term. So I will be voting against this. I will give it unanimous consent when we get to that later on, so we don't have to come back, but yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Wesley?
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the future, I guess, as we progress. So the annexed areas are paying a lower property tax. They're based on the Strathcona County property tax, right?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wesley, just the residential.
Just the residential. And as we develop more and more in those annexed lands, do those subsequent developments also pay at the lower Strathcona County rate, or do they go back to the Fort Saskatchewan rate?
Through to the mayor, Councillor Wesley, as soon as they get developed or they change ownership, they revert to the city of Fort Saskatchewan's rate.
Okay. And maybe I'll ask just one more question, and it may not be particular to you two, so I might shoot it out. Do we do a lot to sort of, I guess, set resident expectations as to what's the difference between a tax rate increase, what's assessment driven, and what are requisitions just totally outside our control? Do we do that kind of messaging in any major way so we only take blame for what we actually did?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Wesley, we do have. They do communications helps us out with posting on social media. We do a budget highlights document, and we actually have a video on our website under taxes that explains assessment and taxes and how things work and the cycle of them.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Blizzard, do you wish to close? I'm good. With that, I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. Do you want to continue for? Sure. Yeah. And that is carried 6-1. Go ahead for second reading. Are you going to put it up on the screen because it says amended?
I make a motion that council give second reading to bylaw C21-26 as presented.
Thank you very much. Do you want to speak to it?
No.
Not seeing anyone weighing in. Do you wish to close?
Nope.
All right, I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. And that is carried 6-1. And just like Councillor Randawa alluded to, if we don't give unanimous consent, this will come back at a special meeting. Would you like to go forward with unanimous consent, Councillor Blizzard?
Can I just read as written there in the?
Yeah, oh,
Bad.
go ahead.
I make a motion that council provide unanimous consent to proceed with the third and final reading of bylaw C 21-26, providing for the collection of the 2026 property taxes.
Thank you very much. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote.
Yes,
You know, I almost hit no.
That is carried unanimously. Would you like to finish off, Councillor
Sure.
Blizzard? All right, go ahead.
I make a motion that council give third reading to bylaw C 21-26 as presented.
Thank you very much. I'll accept the motion. Anything to finish off?
No.
All right. I guess I'll just make the final comment that, I think that council did a really great job on this budget. It was a lot of work. We didn't always agree on time, but it was a respectful process. I thank administration and staff for all of their hard work. I don't necessarily agree fully with this budget just because I'm not for so much use of the reserve to smooth, but I will support it. Council did a lot of good work and we need to move forward. Councillor Blizzard, anything on close?
No.
I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. And that is carried 6-1. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to 11.2. Bylaw C1-26, amend the DCA 07 Direct Control Mixed Use Center, Pineview Commercial Site, District within the L Land Use Bylaw. First reading, Scott Purich presenting.
Okay.
The motion for first reading.
So thank you, Mayor and members of council. So my name is Scott Purich. I'm a planner with the Planning and Development Department here at the city, and I'll be presenting bylaw C1-26 for first reading. This bylaw proposes a land use bylaw amendment for the Pineview commercial area. So I'll begin with a brief overview of the application and planning context, followed by the site location and details of the proposed land use bylaw amendment, and then I will speak to the administration's position and communication process, and conclude with the recommendation. So the subject lands are located in the Pineview commercial area as shown highlighted in purple on the above image and is located along Veterans Way or Highway 21 and generally in proximity to 84th Street and 94th Avenue. There is an existing trail approximately 30 meters wide located along the west or northwest side of the property, separating the parcel from the nearby residential as shown here. So the subject parcel has been zoned as DCA 07 since 2016, allowing for commercial development. The applicant applied earlier last year to add residential uses and subsequently hosted an open house on November 20th, 2025 to gather feedback and inform nearby residents of the proposed amendment. So bylaw C1-26 proposes amendments to the Direct Control District DCA 07. The amendment includes the addition of residential uses, including above ground floor housing, apartment and multi-attached housing. One additional commercial use is proposed as well, the vehicle wash use. And finally, the bylaw changes permitted building heights and adds additional noise mitigation and landscaping regulations. So the image above, you will see the current height map for the Direct Control DCA 07. The subject parcel is broken down into two areas, allowing for 4-story buildings along the Veterans Way or Highway 21, and then 2-story buildings closer to the residential areas. So this image shows the proposed height map for district direct control district DCA 07. This largely maintains the 4-story height area along Veterans Way, but now adds a 3-story area and reduces the 2-story area to along the north and northwest boundary there. So the applicant did hold an engagement session on November 20th, 2025 to share the proposed concept and gather feedback. Residents noted concerns about the loss of green space, shadowing and privacy impacts, safety along the trail, and increased traffic. So a shadow study was conducted by the applicant. The image above is only one image from the shadow study, which shows the general time when shadows may reach into the residential areas. The shadow study does show that during the majority of the year, shadows will not reach the residential areas and only reaches during the late winter months. For context, there is a separation between the subject site as noted and the residential area between the subject site and the residential area by a trail, which is roughly 30 meters wide, and then would be further separated by setbacks on their individual parcels as well. Administration is working with the applicant to have a more complete shadow study done, showing more times and dates, and will provide that information for the public hearing. Regarding lighting and safety concerns, the lighting and strategic access points into the trail will be implemented to address safety. And finally, a traffic impact assessment was conducted, which supports the traffic volume and access to and from the site. So the proposed land use bylaw amendment aligns with the municipal development plan. However, there is no applicable area structure plan or outline plan for this site, and therefore no amendments to these documents are required. Administration supports the proposed amendment due to the site's proximity to Highway 21 and other major transportation routes. It makes it appropriate for mixed-use development. The inclusion of residential uses also supports increased housing diversity and helps address the needs of a growing and diverse population, while also maximizing the use of existing services in the area. I would also note that the residential use helps to alleviate some of the impacts that development it may have on the adjacent residential areas. If Council grants first reading to Bylaw C1-26, administration will proceed with advertising a public hearing in accordance with the Municipal Government Act. The target date for the public hearing is June 9th, 2026. It is being recommended that Council give first reading to Bylaw C1-26 as described in the Council report, and that a public hearing be scheduled. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know that this one is of a lot of interest to our community, and so there might be a lot of people watching online or taking in what we say today. So I just wanted to clarify that for these applications, we typically give first reading to all applications because it does allow for the public hearing to be set and then the applicant as well as the public to have their say at that time, which is the appropriate time. So passing first reading does not actually give support or non-support for this application. All right, Councillor Ketcher, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to put the motion on, but I guess the question that I have from 2016 to now, I guess what has changed with planning, except all the planning people, to understand, you know, what we went through back in 2016 to make the regulations that we did to be so specific.
So through the mayor to Councillor Ketcher, sorry, just for clarification, are you specifically referring to the height or height and uses?
Well, to the usage, because in 2016, Council of the Day was very specific about limiting, and I guess I really question what's changed, as I said, other than all of you, you know, with your mindset because this went through a lot back in 2016.
So through the mayor, so the applicant is, to start off with, the applicant is allowed to make these applications, and then we are required to process them and bring them forward. We did work with them on these ones to see, to adjust them and make them into a suitable position. In this case, as I mentioned, they are introducing residential kind of within proximity to these major transportation routes. We believe that it would help to address and alleviate some of the concerns and impacts that would happen to the adjacent residential areas. Additionally, we have studies and reports that have been provided by the applicant that support the traffic impacts, the shadowing, and we've also added additional regulations to try to alleviate safety concerns. As it stands now, they do have the right to develop under the existing district, and so they also have the right to apply for these amendments.
Okay, and as I look at that drawing that you put up with housing and everything, the requirement back in 2016 is that they have to actually, if this were to be approved the second time around, they have to put in a full intersection as well. So is it the intent that if they have to put in that intersection, there's not going to be any room for any of the commercial, and that we're going to see a change come back again, that they're going to want to change this again?
So through the mayor to Councillor Ketcher, so the traffic impact assessment did note the requirement for an all-directional there. And I'm sorry if I can show. Which would be located here. So that is a requirement of the TIA and would be needed at the development stage. Yep.
Okay. And just legally, we need to give it first reading at this point in time. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right, Councillor Noyan.
What a time to be on Fort Sask Council, new pool and all this, and changing things here. I have some questions about the track changes in Appendix B for DCA 7. Just in regards to like noise attenuation and how you'd handle this, because as it reads, the Development Authority may require mitigation measures. Now, obviously, this is going to change the environment of the neighborhood, especially people backing onto this commercial and potentially higher density residential site. There's going to be noise there. So what would be required for you to say we need a berm and fencing and extra landscaping in order to just protect the privacy and the quality of life that has been known for existing residents? What thresholds would you implement, and what do you need to see from that noise report reference to trigger that becoming a requirement?
So through the mayor, so generally development within this area, the actual development itself would help to alleviate some of the noise concerns coming from the highway actually. So in that instance, development, the actual buildings will help address that. And then when it comes to the development stage, depending on what exactly is being proposed, it is available to administration to require a noise impact assessment or a noise study to kind of have some of those levels that might be coming across this area. And then from there, we can assess and have berming, fencing, whatever might be appropriate installed at the administration's discretion. Yeah.
Okay, so the picture, like there's going to be a lot of vacant units in commercial that are being built. So they're going to build these and then find tenants with, perhaps a restaurant that's going to have speakers on a patio or something like that, right? And then they're going to have tenants that don't create a lot of noise in that way. So how do we control what tenants fill the building and then that they adhere to the actual development authority, the standard that we wanted to see in this commercial development?
Yeah. So through the mayor, I believe my understanding for that would fall under our noise bylaw. So we have requirements for businesses and residential areas for the amount of noise that can be produced during certain times, and then it would be an enforcement if they exceed that and go later.
Okay, and then maybe just circling back, so there will not be any requirement for berms or extra fences, landscaping, or anything like that to separate this from existing existing housing, because it would be considered, I guess, an improvement to noise attenuation, having a barrier between the existing residential and the highway. So that's not even something that would be pursued.
Through the mayor, that would be something that we would look further into at the development stage, in terms of when it's being proposed. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Good enough. Thanks.
Councillor Wesley.
Thank you. First off, I do respect the right of every property owner to bring a zoning matter before council, and I just want to make sure I got that straightened away. However, this particular proposal in your package does carry a recommendation from administration. Council, and this might be directed more to Troy and Janelle because you may not be aware of this, but council recently affirmed its commitment to respecting the character of existing neighborhoods as a foundational condition of growth. And I'm having a little bit of a struggle to reconcile that commitment that we made with the recommendation that we have here. And so I would love some clarification, maybe from administration, on how this particular proposal aligns with that particular direction.
Ms. Smith-Duguid?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wesley, our recommendation is primarily based on the municipal development plan and any area structure plans that are in place. From our read of the planning documents, this does align with the higher level planning documents that are in place, which is why we put forward the recommendation. The applicant has been willing to work with us through this application and put in additional measures to help reduce the impacts. We believe we've gotten it as far as we can go. At this point, it's with council for applying your discretion.
Okay, well, I guess maybe I have a process question then, in that how does council's strategic plan then factor into all these discussions in this direction?
Through your worship to Councillor Wesley, at this point the strategic plan is in draft phase. Once it becomes endorsed by council, then we will take a look at our planning documents and our corporate business plans to take the direction from council and the strat plan into our other level plans.
Okay, maybe just one more question, if I might. Just maybe following up on Councillor Ketcher's concern. In 2016, I understand there was a vigorous debate into setting this zoning as it is. And I'm struggling with we do long-term planning, and 10 years to me is not really that long-term. And then in the span of 10 years, we've kind of gone in a sort of a really radical different direction from just commercial to commercial mixed use with with many stories. And I'm just wondering, moving forward, how do we ensure that our planning framework is robust so that we're not making these big lurches from here to there and then back again? Because I'm really starting to question why we do long-term planning at all, because we don't seem to follow it.
Yeah. Through the mayor to Councillor Wesley. So as I kind of noted before, it is the applicant's right to apply for these, to suggest changes, to apply for these changes, and then administration does work through them with a comprehensive process of kind of working through the plan and the suggestions and then circulating to other departments, external agencies, getting that feedback, implementing that feedback, making sure that there any impacts that would arise from these changes are dealt with and alleviated. And so that process is fairly comprehensive, and we have worked through them with this on this particular project, and that's why we are moving forward with a recommendation of support, because we believe that we've gotten it to a point where it's suitable.
Okay, thanks,
If,
Scott.
if I may add,
Sure.
with apologies, just that the changes that are being proposed for this site do further mitigations to some of the impacts, as well as introduce a residential character to the immediately adjacent portion of the existing neighborhood. And so from a planning perspective, we look at the impacts of, like a highway commercial development and what that would have on single detached dwellings. And there's a bit more of a buffer in that sense with having residences in between the two uses. So from our perspective, and certainly it's council has to make their own decision, but from our perspective as administration, it increases the mitigations to some of the impacts that would occur when the site gets developed.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Scott and Lindsay. I have a couple other questions, but I'll let my learned colleagues kind of, weigh in as well.
Go ahead, Councillor Harris.
Yeah, I'd be prepared to make the resolution when the time comes for first reading. Couple of questions though. So ultimately, is it the same developer that has proposed this layout and configuration and land use template as opposed to the last group? Because the last group was looking at fairly significant commercial development, entirely just commercial development on this site. And so I need to kind of understand a couple of questions about just drawing some understanding. This sun shadow thing is not answering my questions. That's another issue. But is it the same developer? Or is there a new developer? Or is it a new party of developers? What's the ownership orientation?
Through Mayor to Councillor Harris, I'd have to confirm that and get back to you, but I believe that it is new ownership since 2016.
Ms. Smith-Duguid, I think she's got a response for you there, Mr. Peerage.
Through the mayor, Mr. Perch is correct. It is a new developer.
Oh, okay, and that's good. That answers a big part of this for me, because obviously I think the last development iteration that we saw and that was put out, and there was some advertising on site, obviously suggests that it was a fairly significant commercial development, and this is now obviously mixed use with. As near as I can determine, there's some commercial that's just right where you indicated, Mr. Perlich, that there would be the right in, or they're all directional, plus there'd be a couple of right ins and right outs from what I read. Okay, so that's a little bit different configuration in that context. This property has been privately owned forever. From the time that I was with the city and I left in 2005, this was always privately owned. And it has always been a misnomer for the residents in that neighborhood adjacent to it that it was parkland, that it was green space. The people that owned it at one time, to my best knowledge, you can confirm this, they farmed this. They cropped it, they cut hay, but they had always had an intent to develop it. So what we are looking at right now is long-term commitment to the property owners to develop this property, and this is the latest iteration that we're looking at. Okay. And so ultimately, this is just the zoning with the changes to the land use bylaw as it relates to the zoning in this area. If we give this first reading, have a public hearing, and eventually pass it, then the developer comes forward with their development application, and they would ultimately then put some meat on the bones relative to this. Now, the question that I've got is the apartment complex, or are they purpose-built apartments? Or are these, because there doesn't appear to be much of a market from what we've been hearing in the commercial area and in the apartment area for condo type development, so it's purpose-built?
So through the mayor to Councillor Harris, so there was discussion that these could potentially be for senior facilities for the apartments here. I would let the developer speak further to that at the public hearing.
Okay, well, when the developer comes forward at the public hearing, then ultimately I think that if you can give them some heads up to provide as much clarity as council as to kind of what they're looking at here.
Yep.
Because I don't see from an apartment standpoint that this is categorically all that different than what's further south on the west side of Highway 21 that just finished development of 3-story apartments. Basically, it was on a multifamily site that was always dedicated for multifamily. And There was apartments in that area just to the north of that. Originally, it was supposed to be condos. That never flew. So I don't see this as all that typically different, other than the integration of some commercial with this stuff. And then we just recently approved one on the other side of the highway, a little further to the south. So that's not dissimilar. So I don't think it's out of keeping from our long-range planning context to do something like that.
Councillor Harris, do you want to put the motion on and we can,
Yeah, I'll put the motion on. If you can bring it up.
and then we can continue with debate and more
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, I would then move that council give first reading bylaw C-126 to amend land use bylaw C-2320 by amending DCA-07 direct control commercial center highway 21 at Pineview District, and furthermore that a public hearing be scheduled. And with that said, I think obviously we're going to hear from the public, and I hope we do. This is part of the overall planning framework to ensure that people understand that land use is ultimately up to the city to approve from that standpoint, and development control comes thereafter. I think, Mr. Perlich, you made a comment that any development on the site would definitely act as a block to the back of the residences that have been backing onto Highway 21 for 45 or more years, for a long time. And so I think, if anything, that's a noise mitigation in its own right. And the whole idea of putting, berms and things of that nature, we can say those things, but ultimately I think there will be a requirement from a development standpoint for appropriate landscaping mitigation. And that would just be a normal consequence, would it not, the administration working to reduce the impact of an adjacent property of this type from other developed properties?
Yes. So through the mayor to Councillor Harris, that's correct. There are landscaping requirements based on the amount of land being developed. So they would be positioned. That would be at discussion during the development permit process as to where and how many. But yes.
Yeah, so my last observation or question in this regard is, ultimately speaking, our obligation, if a property is appropriately zoned, is to give it appropriate approval with due consideration and appropriate control. And if not, we could be ultimately liable to a property owner for loss in value, could we not? If we don't do what we say we're going to do relative to our planning framework?
So through the mayor to Councillor Harris, so the council is available to you to refuse these applications, and it's also available to the applicant to come back with new proposals and such. I would maybe hazard or caution that refusing to maintain it for green space would result in liability on the city's part in having to purchase that property. But in terms of just refusing it for different options or different uses, that is available to council.
Well, I point that out only as a potential problem if we don't do ultimately what we as a development authority have to do from time to time. And that is make tough decisions. And ultimately, change is the biggest issue that most people have trouble dealing with. But once change takes place, typically these things tend to moderate over time, and they become less of an issue than when they were first proposed. But this is for first reading, public hearing, the appropriate public engagement, and I suspect that we will hear lots from the public when that time comes, and I hope we do, because that ultimately will help council then cite an appropriate decision in this regard. It's controversial, I suspect, and let's move it along to the next stage and see where it goes from there. Hopefully we can come out with a positive development outcome, and that's what I would ultimately be looking for.
Thank you. Councillor Randawa?
Yes, thanks for the presentation, Scott. A couple questions. Do you have a map of the notification area of how many or which homes we'll be notifying as part of this?
Take a look. I don't believe I have a map at the moment, but we would fall back to our standard of 100 meters notification area from the amendment area.
Okay, can we expand that at all?
that is possible. That would have to be at the direction of council. So there would have to be legislative, resolution for that.
And how and where would I put that resolution?
We can have it ready for you on the screen, and you can just look at it and say if you're.
Whoa, you already got it ready. Look at that. I guess I'm pretty predictable with this notification.
Through the mayor, our thought was that council do first reading and then afterwards, that could be subsequent direction.
Okay, I'll wait till after first reading.
Perfect.
Right. Question regarding the shadowing study. I don't know if you have that to put up on the map. So the applicant is looking to change it from 2-story to like 3. So why does this map, or the one we got, everything just said 2-story only? Like, do we have a shadowing study that actually fairly represents the proposed changes?
Yeah. So the shadowing study may have noted 2-story apartments. So if I can show with my mouse here, so this area in this general area is 2-story. This reflects the height map that was shown earlier. If I jump back to just one, so this area here is 2 stories. This area here is 3 stories. And then technically this area along the highway here would be 4 stories.
And just to clarify, that was a mislabeling on the attachment, and we apologize, and we'll have that corrected.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, because I received a question from a resident about that, and I didn't have a good answer. So that's correct then, or realistic. On the shadowing as well, there's only certain times provided in the day, but if I was to understand from the resident's perspective, sure, at like noon on December 21st, they'll have shadow in their backyard, but from the time the sun comes up till that time, like, do we know a percentage of time where they'll be impacted by shadowing?
So through Mayor Macon to Councillor Wandau, we haven't dealt with a lot of shadow studies here. And so just trying to get more information, I think it's really typical for these to show the 4 solstices and what the time is. We want to be cautious about using the most extreme examples of winter because, I mean, frankly, 2-story buildings are casting a lot of shadow. That would cover a lot of the community. Even the fences themselves will cast a lot of shadow at 9 a.m. during winter solstice, for example. So just keep that in mind. It's not to say that information shouldn't be used to make a decision, but that's why we want to provide a more fulsome study to you to show all 4 seasons and what the typical shadow will be. So that's coming for public hearing.
Okay, that will be awesome. And in regards to the comments in the report regarding the open house, I remember myself, and I want to say Mayor Macon, I don't know if anyone else attended that open house, but there was a fair amount of residents there. Do you have any anecdotes or information on what percentage were in favor versus against? I'm pretty sure I have a broad understanding of it because I heard a lot while I was there, but...
So through the mayor to Councillor Randhawa. So I don't have specific numbers, but I can say that there were generally opposed, but there were residents that did attend that were in favor, that were looking at potentially introducing a business in the area, leasing a building or renting or what might not. So generally, I would say that most of them were opposed. I would have to come back with specific numbers for you at public hearing.
Okay, I would appreciate for the public hearing if we get those specifics because I only heard one side of the I would say the argument there, and I'd be interested to know how much heavily it weighed onto that side because I want to say it was a lot. And my last, that's it for questions. In terms of comments, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is we have an obligation as council to provide first reading. So I will be voting for first reading. I think it's important that we, do our legal obligation as a governing body and don't open our municipality up to anything else. But I look forward to increasing hopefully with council's support, the notification area because I think it's important we notify the impacted neighborhood. And I think Councillor Wesley asked some really eloquent questions about, keeping Pineview and our neighborhoods distinct as they are. So I look forward to it. I was part of the 2016 debate. I was in the minority during that time, so I look forward to hearing what changes 10 years later. Thank you.
Counselor Blizzard?
I've already seen lots of great feedback about people excited about another set of lights on the highway. Just had to make that comment. The trail that's existing there now, it's all on city land, I assume? And what is the closest point that the trail is? Because a lot of it is, when you say it's 30 meters away, but I mean, I've gone that way before, you know, walking, biking, and some of it feels like it's 30 meters away already. How close is that trail to the land, the lot line here? At its closest, say?
So
I found it hard to see. It almost looks like that part of the purple line is the trail, so that's why I asked that.
yeah, I do apologize. My border of the amendment area there might have been too thick to see it out clearly. But the trail, like the property, the municipal reserve here, the area that the city owns, is generally 30 meters wide, is what I was trying to indicate. So that it does fluctuate slightly, going down to around 25 meters in certain areas. But how far the trail is away from the property, I don't have a specific amount. I would have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, I would like that information. Again, I agree we're going to pass first reading, so that'll come back, but I would certainly appreciate that information. Maybe a better map of where that is, because I do think for, you know, if people are feeling unsafe, one of the reasons would be that the trail is almost like a catwalk that you're right beside where this fence is. So I hope there's some distance there, but we'll find out. The other thing that I'm concerned about, it looks to me like there's not much access for anyone living there. If you're fencing off that whole northern purple property line for kids to go to a park. The way they would have to access a park is way out at the one end, way out the other, or driving anywhere. There really doesn't look like any amenities in there, and I guess that's just stating a fact because I don't see anything in there. So if the developer's listening, I'd like to maybe get some more information on that. And then we were talking about when this came about. It was in 2016. I did support this after being nudged to rezone it, but that was in 2016. We got an actual layout of this, and it was after the last 2021 election, so I'm going to say 2022 maybe, and it was all commercial and nothing has happened. So I just feel, is this almost like a desperation to get it going?
So through the mayor to Councillor Blizzard, it's to the landowner as to when they want to apply for development. They still have the ability to develop for commercial as it is currently. And I would also like to just jump back. Also, you noted the fencing and access to the trail. So there is going to be access from this site to that trail throughout the northern and northwest kind of boundary there, in multiple locations. So it won't be completely fenced off either.
Which is fine, except that would make me, if I lived in that area, a little more nervous. Is someone going to jump the fence to be able to access a park quicker? Because you get to the trail, but you can't get to a park. There's still a long ways around from this area to get to any other amenities, a soccer pitch or whatever. So I guess that to me, this residential part really has me concerned, but I will support first reading.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, your line of questioning really got me thinking. Here we go. Kind of adding amenities to a neighborhood with commercial that aren't accessible, and that doesn't really create a lot of value for the existing residents in park, in the existing neighborhood. With the density of housing that's going to be here and the potential amount of residents, is there no requirement under ASP to have a certain amount of MR dedication, like in this whole parcel, that we could say, hey, you need to have some park spaces here? Because that is, I would think some young families move into this area, regardless who it is, there should be something if they're bound by back-a-lot fencing and then a highway to to actually make this, you know, a livable space.
So through the mayor to Councillor Noyan, so in terms of municipal reserve, just to speak to that, that has all been allocated already. The 10%, as you noted, that's been taken, and there is no ASP in place for this particular parcel. In terms of just kind of communal space being within that area, they did originally have discussions around having possible dog park space in kind of the little end corner piece there, but as to any additional requirements that would be further discussed at the development stage. So when you have an apartment or multi-attached housing, the land use bylaw does note how much communal space would be required with those developments, and so that would be addressed at the DP stage. Development.
What's the definition of communal space? And parking lots are included, right?
So the parking, sorry, through the mayor to Councillor Noyan, parking lots would not be included in the communal space, but the amount, I don't have that specific number off the top of my head, but there is an equation under the land use bylaw which determines how much is required.
Just to add to that, there would be requirements including like seating areas for people that are outdoors, and of course the landscaping requirements.
Right, okay. How are we doing this without an ASP?
So through the mayor to Councillor Noyan. So an ASP isn't technically required. It helps to guide your long-term development and stuff. And there's ASP surrounding this parcel. However, this parcel was never specifically included in an ASP. And as a result of that, what really ends up happening is that our notification process changes a little bit. So during subdivision and development, having an ASP kind of reduces some of the requirements under the Municipal Government Act in terms of our notification to adjacent landowners. Without that, we have a higher standard for notification.
I have concern about, like, it seems like we could develop an ASP for both sides of the highway in these pockets that are extremely unique, right in the middle of Fort Saskatchewan, when new development is being built out miles away to the south, and that's the continuous growth that we're seeing, and then we have these remnant pockets that, and they're large as well, right? So I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. But just one last short question is what's the duration of until we would see the public hearing? This would be done in June at some point. There's no date on the public hearing in here unless I missed something in all the info.
So through the mayor to Councillor Noyan, that's correct. It would be it's recommended to be in June there.
Okay, good enough. Thanks.
And I apologize, Councillor Ketcher, you should have been first on round 2. Go ahead. Sorry, I got you guys back. You're even.
That's okay. Just made up for it last time.
Yeah.
Just some questions that I'm going to have for the developer. Okay, so even looking at putting this sort of density, would the servicing actually be able to handle it? Because they're servicing, the other Pine View is serviced that way. This has to service off 84th Street, I'm told.
So through Mayor,
they can answer just as long as they have the answers at second reading.
Yeah, and we will have those answers for you. I will note that we have had discussions between our engineering department and the developer to make sure that they are being there is capacity within that area, and it would be further elaborated on at development stage.
Okay, so these are just going to be some questions I'm going to have at second reading. Second exit, is there going to be a second exit out of there proposed?
So through the mayor to Councillor Ketcher. So currently there is proposed four access points into the site. The only one is under the TIA to have a all directional. The remaining 3 would be just right in, right outs.
Okay, you just opened up another can of worms. Why would administration want in this to have that many in and outs if eventually, in some lifetime, this highway gets developed to more lanes? Because we have very limited in and out of any other any other area, so why? That's a question that I would have of administration. Okay, you don't have to answer these now, but you can write them down. The other questions that I would have, would this be considered a greenfield development then, and the city does absolutely nothing inside this development, so they don't provide public garbage collection, snow removal, all of that stuff? So what would the prescribed parameters be around, especially the housing area? So I have that question. Okay, and then lastly, for the developer, if they're listening, why would they consider putting 3 stories near the narrowest part of this development? You don't have to answer. I'm just throwing those out there because we said we give first reading so that we can throw questions out. If the developer is listening, they can come back with those at second reading. Okay?
You're good?
I'm good.
All right, Councillor Wesley?
Awesome. Just maybe a little bit curious, and thank you for all your answers so far. I appreciate that. Will there be any minimum commercial floor area or use requirements just to make sure that this site maintains its predominantly or original commercial zone intent rather than maybe digressing into a predominantly residential development?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wesley, there's no requirements of that being proposed. So at the development stage, they could technically apply for all residential. It's if the use is added, it would go under consideration to administration though at that point.
Okay, so this could, in theory, then, although we're talking mixed use and it was once commercial, it could be just pure residential at some point.
So through the mayor, so the intention for the district is noted as mixed use. So it would be under the consideration of mixed use, but technically, if we add residential uses, that is something that they could apply for across the entire site.
Okay, I'm not sure I got my question quite answered in a more definitive way.
Maybe I can clarify.
Yeah.
I think as the decision makers for development permits, our staff would look at the intent of the district, and it is to be mixed use. So if it got to a point where it was clear that there wasn't a mix of uses, I think that's a conversation we would have. And I think for transparency, they would need to come back and say, we're not actually doing mixed use. We are only doing one type of development, and that would require an amendment.
Okay, so there's no real point at which we say it's mixed use. I'm just trying to get at it from the perspective of the residents in the area, in that they're looking at this and it's been commercial for 10 years, and then in theory it could be residential, and it could change from this commercial to being purely residential, and some of that could be on the whim of just how planning negotiates with the developer. And I assume you could probably, and hopefully the developer can kind of respect the fact that a lot of people in that area will have angst, for that, because they will have no say in this, but they will be, strongly impacted by it. Okay. I just have one more question, is that when will we get the unedited residential comments?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wesley. Sorry, are you referring to the open house?
Yeah, so there was a whole
engagement?
bunch of open house comments that the developer got, and I know a lot of people send them to planning as well. And I'm going to assume that they'll be made available to us in a less digested version. I would like to see the real comments.
Yeah. So
The
through
good,
the
the
mayor.
bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. So through the mayor to Councillor Wesley there, we do have a what we heard report as a result of the open house, which was prepared by the developer, which will be posted to the website, and I will make sure that we post it or attach it to the next council report.
Awesome stuff. Thanks a lot.
Councillor Randhawa?
So let me just follow up on that question. The what we heard report was prepared by the developer and not us? Then, but I thought we had our administrative staff there, so would we get some report that reflects what administration heard and not what the developer heard? For me as a counselor, the whole point of a public hearing is to be unbiased and give us the unbiased set of facts. So I just want to make sure we're on hearing both sides.
Yep. So through the mayor to Councillor Randawa, so the open house engagement was hosted by the developer. Administration did ask them to host it, but we were only there in a support capacity, answering questions when the developers were taken up by other residents and stuff, helping where we could and making sure that we were getting all of that feedback, that they weren't missing some of those comments and stuff. And then they would also prepare the What We Heard report. The What We Heard report does have the comments attached, so you can see those unfiltered comments. And we also worked with them on the What We Heard report to make any changes to make sure that it properly reflected what we saw there as well.
Okay, so administration was part of collating that and ensuring it's unbiased.
Yep.
Okay. My last question was regarding that traffic or transportation impact assessment as part of this. So, does it have this development the way it is, and if council were to approve it, does it have any adverse impacts on the highway there and the amount of traffic going through as terms of council looking at its 10-year capital plan and potentially widening that highway? Does this accelerate the need for that or any adverse impacts to general residents driving through?
So through the mayor to Councillor Randawa, so the transportation impact assessment did not note any significant impacts to the highway. With regards to the widening, that's something I'll have to get back to you guys on. I don't have the answer to that one. I can't recall if that was taken into consideration. However, our engineering department has been working on this with the developer on this, so I'm sure that they've had discussions on this.
Okay, and are we privy to that impact assessment as part of like the public hearing document? Will we be able to see that, or is it very technical?
Through Mayor Macon to Councillor Randall, we can take that away as administration. It is a very technical document, so we can look at maybe there's additional context provided in the next report to just clarify and give you some numbers without giving you the full burden of having to review a long report.
Okay, yeah, exact summary or something. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harris, do you wish to close?
No, I think this has been a good spirited conversation. Lots of questions have been asked, and that's the whole purpose of this. And I think our goal is to ensure that any development that comes forward meets appropriate planning considerations, that it becomes a positive amenity for our community, not a negative amenity. And so I think council has asked some good questions. I hope the developer is on notice that they're going to have to be at the top of their game to present this one, because it is a potentially controversial development in this location. So with that said, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote.
That's all I have to say.
And that is carried unanimously. All right. Moving on to item 12, notice of motions. I understand that we have at least one. Oh, I apologize. We had a subsequent motion that was relevant to the first one. Councillor Randall, you go ahead. Did you have a number in mind?
I'm going to say 200 meters, but that just involves me playing around with Google Maps. So unless anybody has a more scientific method.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go 200 meters.
It'll pop up on the screen.
Councillor Harris might want to.
So the question, if we're talking 200 meters, it's basically from any point on the butting property against any of the other going into Pineview by 200 meters, straight in and either way. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good clarification.
Go ahead, Councillor Randall.
Yeah. I move that council direct administration to notify landowners within 200 meters of the subject site. And just in speaking in favor of that, I just think we want to really dot our I's, cross our T's, make sure that any residents potentially impacted by such a development are having their democratic right and being able to engage in the process and be a part of the public hearing. So I think this just allows us to be a little extra safe and notify all those that are impacted.
Thank you. I'll support the motion. I'm really good with the 200 and do encourage any residents that have any concerns to reach out and have their comments formally heard or come attend the public hearing and have your say. That is what those opportunities are for. I'm not seeing anybody else. Do you wish to close? I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote. And that is carried unanimously. All right, now we'll move on to item 12, notice of motions. I know that we have at least one. Councillor Randawa, did you want to read in yours?
Yes.
Is there any others? Not seeing any others? Oh, can you say as presented?
I move that motion as presented and distributed.
Thank you very much. And obviously, Legislative Services has that already. Perfect. All right, I'll accept that. Not seeing any other ones. Points of interest.
Is this urban
Go ahead, Councillor Wesley.
All right. My point of interest, this one's courtesy from the awesome, fabulous team that we have at the Heritage Precinct team. As we know, May is Asian Heritage Month, and the earliest documented presence of Chinese settlers in Fort Saskatchewan includes Charlie Sung, a 27-year-old cook recorded in the 1906 federal census. As an aside, I encourage everybody to fill out your census forms. Those are very important for our municipal grants. And he resided in a boarding house operated by John Doolin, proprietor of Doolin and Company Painters. This is complemented by a notice published in the Conservator in May 1907, which notes that Si Che Wu left his position as cook at the Queen's Hotel to enter into business with Hen Dick, who operated a Chinese restaurant at a location which is now occupied by Country Knits. So again, thanks to their Heritage Precinct team for our little historical tidbit.
Thank you very much. I always appreciate that. I can't go without it now, so thank you. You got to keep it up. Councillor Ketcher?
Just a reminder, Life in the Heartland is tomorrow, 5 p.m. out in Josephburg. It's an excellent venue to go. Talk to our industrial partners, see what's going on with them. I always encourage everybody to go out, and they feed you as well. So hope to see lots of people out at Life in the Heartland, out at Moyer Rec Center, 5 o'clock.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Not seeing anyone else. Councillor inquiries? Not that there's anyone here to take those, but councillor inquiries? Are we okay? Everything's okay? Okay. No? Okay, we're good. We do have a few items under ATIA, under closed session. Can I get a motion to go in camera? Councillor Ketcher?
I'll make the motion to go in camera as per the access to information.
Thank you. I'll accept and close the motion. Please cast your vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much.